So if you have a company that works with a very large security company provider, they maybe route like at least tens of thousands of guards all over the world every morning and every evening on beat planning. We help them do that. It's because today they're doing it manually, right? It's a scheduler that they just say, hey, this person goes there, that person goes there, right? So very simple routing problem. Same way we are getting into asset servicing. Okay, let's say you are a telco or you're an oil and gas company, or you have huge pipelines everywhere. You have assets that you have tagged and allocated. Assets get spoiled very often.
Yes.
So some modem conks off, some bulb conks off, some this conks off. So how do you schedule servicemen throughout these network, right? So our routing can cater to all this. So when you say routing, it's not routing of just car or bike or bus.
Oh, amazing.
Right. So that is a fundamental difference in an API first architecture vis-a-vis solutions architecture that's built purely for, let's say, a specific vertical.
Welcome to the Mobility Innovators podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Mobility Innovator Podcast. I'm your host Jaspal Singh. Mobility Innovator Podcast invite key innovator in the transportation and logistics sector to share their experience and future forecasts. In this episode, we'll be discussing the role of artificial intelligence in shaping up the future of mobility and logistics industry. Our today's guest is an amazing entrepreneur. He's currently co-founder of NextBillion.ai, a startup that provides location-based tech solution using artificial intelligence for the mobility and logistics industry. Before starting NextBillion, he was leading Geo Data Operations Team at Grab and was working as Senior Director of Product. He has also worked as a product manager at Google and led development of several key products, including Google Flight and Google Assistant. He was born in India, but has worked in US, Japan, and Singapore. He's known for his expertise in AI and is part of Forbes Tech Council. He also featured as Fortune 40 Under 40. I'm so happy to welcome Ajay Bulusu, co-founder of NextBillion.ai. Now it's time to listen and learn. Hello, Ajay. It's great to have you on the show. I'm really excited about this, because we finally made it as we were trying to find a slot for some time. So I really want to use this opportunity to know about you, about your entrepreneurial journey and your thought on innovation in geospatial mapping space.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Jaspal. Very excited to be here. I know we've rescheduled a couple of times. I'm sorry about that, but I'm just glad we made it finally.
No, but that's part of entrepreneur life. You have to hustle, and I love that. So I never mind that. So don't worry. Now, to start with, I just want to know a little bit more about you. You have a very interesting profile, and I see you are very active on LinkedIn. But I want to know something which you haven't published about your career on LinkedIn.
Lots, actually. And especially the initial days were not all rosy, especially when you go out of college straight, right? So I graduated. I'll give you a little bit of background, right? So I graduated straight out of recession. 2009. So to get a job itself was very tough. So after 5 years in engineering and a master's, I had to come back home to India because there was no jobs in UK at that time. So there was a lot of struggle for a year and a half to get into a small company also. Then I got into a very small company that does demand planning and forecasting called Steel Wedge. I don't really talk about the initial days of my career too much, right? Everything starts with Google. So there was a lot of pre-Google to 2-3 years of, hustling and just making some money and just making sure you're in the market and you're not irrelevant. So then it starts off with Google. Then I'm slowly starting about how Google didn't end well for me, but Google was amazing for me. But that's that story for another day.
Okay.
But I think it was like initial times were very tough. But once we got into the market and got into the weeds, I think it's been like relatively a good, interesting journey, like no complaints.
No, amazing. It's interesting to know that you came out of college during the recession time, because I can imagine it was very tough.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it helped you to build something stronger because you understand the market condition and you start from basic. So it actually make you more stronger. And I can see how you are building your venture now. And another question now, you not only started your first career after recession, actually you started your venture after a big crisis of pandemic, which is correct. Another part of your life story. So I would love to know why NextBillion, when were you doing so great at Grab? You were at a senior position, good point in your career, and
Yeah,
suddenly in
yeah.
2020 you decided, okay, now it's time to leave the cushy job and start Next Billion?
So few things here. We didn't expect the pandemic. We didn't
Okay.
think we'll start and pandemic will hit. That is the first thing. We started in sort of March 2020. We thought it'd just be a flu. We didn't really think of it like, oh, this is going to be a 3-year, epic. Then March, the world locked up, right? So you are in it now, right? So yeah, you can quit always. Your company would take you back because you're like a month into your quitting, but there was no way we were going to do that. I mean, we went out to think, okay, listen, we will do this. And the years that followed, there's no regrets as of today. Right? We are doing really well. We've learned a lot. I'm not sure the company, according to a lot of people, is doing like as they expected. Like, everyone VCs, everyone has their own expectations of how revenue should scale, etc., etc. But I think for us, fundamentally, we are solving a very tough problem. It's not a copy paste. It's not like you will go and find 300 location platforms there that do the same thing. There are very few in the world. We are fundamentally reinventing the problem. And we thought the opportunity, we didn't know big or small, but we thought, okay, there's a okay sized opportunity here for us to go and do something. And we were 3 people who were very good at what we do. There was a lot of trust in each other, and very hard to find a team. So I'm realizing in entrepreneurship, 2 things are tough, right? A, to find a problem that you think you know how to solve. 2 is to find a team that knows how to solve this problem. And both were in our hands, right? So we said, okay, if we don't do it now, early 30s, then we'll never do it. So essentially, philosophically, it was more about when do we do it? And the responsibilities will always keep increasing, which we are seeing now. So I just think there's no right place, right time. You should wake up one fine morning and say, listen, I'm quitting my job, right? I am going to do this. Only then can you become an entrepreneur. Otherwise, you cannot plan for 3 years and get everything right and say, listen, this is exactly how I'm going to set it up. Then it's impossible to be an entrepreneur, I think.
No, that's very true. In fact, that's remind me of my time when I quit my first job. I was in a public sector, and I kept my resignation letter in my draft for 3 months. And one fine day, I just wake up and I said, I have to send it today. I was waiting to do something, plan something. Like you said, you can't do it, and one day you need to just take a call and go for it, and trust in your guts or trust in your.
Yeah, you have to trust in yourself. Actually, there's nothing else. Self-belief is the only thing that you need. The rest will follow. I understand almost 95% of all startups will fail. We also don't know how Next Billion will do, right? So we've never gotten into this thinking we have to become 10 billion company, we have to become 1 billion company. We just got into thinking, let's have fun, right? Let us take this as a job that anyway we would have done. It's not like we would not have done a job. So let's take it that way with higher responsibility. And see how it goes, right? There was no future planning or anything in our heads. We just thought we take it by the year and see how it goes.
I love that point, because I was teaching a class day before yesterday. I was telling entrepreneur is just go for it. Don't plan about valuation and money, because then you will never able to build something. If you really want to build something, you need to just believe the purpose, the mission you want to do, and just go for it. And rest all will follow. And that's a way to go for it. Now, your fun part in life, like you said, Next Billion is your fun part. You're enjoying, you're doing it something. So Next Billion is a startup which is focusing on AI powered mapping solution, and I don't know many people understand that, because it's something which is hidden. Sometimes people don't understand. Sometimes people don't understand how this whole mapping works. So can you tell more about the company and what make it unique? Like you mentioned, you are different from others. The problem you're solving is not that big, but at the same time, it's very unique. And sometimes people will ask, like, why I need Next Billion when there is a Google Map? Like, how different it is from using Google Map, and why businesses should go for it.
So first things first, we are moving away from this mapping sort of narrative currently, right? So I think it's causing a bit of confusion that, why didn't you run a mapping company in the world? So this is not, so we are becoming a more location tech company, all inclusive location, in which mapping is an input, right? So what we have done for 2.5 years is we have built a platform that can help us serve a lot of use cases. The fundamental difference between other companies and us is others build solutions on a Google or a here, They just took what exists and they started building solutions of routing, route optimization, logistics, whatever, right, on top.
Yeah.
What we did was we did it reverse. So we first last 2.5 years built a platform for mapping. So where maps serves as an input into this platform. Same way into the same platform, there'll be satellite imagery that serves as an input, street imagery, any spatial data serves as an input. Okay, it can be a repo of sorts. On that repo, you mix match the best of this and you build solutions on top. It can be route optimization like logistics, B2B, field force, trucking. So what we are now doing, we're building more vertical specific solutions on a horizontal platform.
Great.
Right? So the next 2.5 years, we are focused on just purely understanding a retail use case, understanding a transportation use case, understanding a public transit use case, and have this very nimble maps platform that we've built to build solutions on top. So essentially, we will merge 4 or 5 or 6 companies into one, right? So you just, if you want anything location, just come to us. Tracking, tracing, tiling, routing, ETA, navigation, geocoding, imagery rendering, name it. Map making, OSM. So whatever you want to build on a spatial data stack, you come to us. We sort of want to be Snowflake or Databricks, what they do for generic data. We do it for specific geospatial data. That's sort of the thesis with which we started. The early mapping narrative was to prove some thesis and also win some customers.
Yeah.
But now that we've done both and we've raised some funding, next is to get into proper vertical specific solutions.
Amazing. That's great. That's great. Now it makes more clear. It's not just a mapping solution. It's actually location based tech solution
it's fully LBS, right? So the whole point of this whole thing is to only build location based systems.
Okay. So now you mentioned about this location-based tech system, and one of the key points for location-based tech is this route optimization.
Yes.
And I think it's very important for transportation, for ride-hailing company, micro-mobility, logistic, e-commerce, because if I can deliver my packet faster, I can do more delivery. If I can reach my destination faster, my vehicle utilization can be higher. So I would say the route optimization have a big impact on the business case. So I just want to understand how this whole location-based tech can help in this route optimization. Yeah. And it'll be great if you can share some real use cases with your client, some success stories.
Yeah. So see, I think there are at least 500 routing companies in the world. It's not like we are the first or we won't be the last either in this. So all these companies in the past were built, again, same thing I told you, on existing maps platforms. They were not, nobody built a platform first solution. They built a solution first solution. Okay. Then they focused on a vertical. If you are a delivery company, I'll give you everything end to end. I'll give you a mobile app, integration, SMS, inventory planning, blah, 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 everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but they were still underlying. It was getting powered by the same problem that's there with the existing platform. I can't open, close the road. I can't draw new points. I can't add a geofence. I don't have any capability on the data front for me to change anything. So that's why we, instead of rushing to building route optimization the first year, we first built this underlying platform. Now we are building specific route optimization for hazmat trucks, a route optimization for buses, route optimization for hyper local delivery, right? Because each nuance of this thing, the nuances will change, but the algorithm / the way you do it, it remains pretty much the same, right? Like you may tweak a few parameters. That's one fundamental difference. Second fundamental difference is the API first approach. All these people are integration and solutions first approach, meaning I'll integrate with your ERP, I'll integrate with your existing data. Each one was to take 8 to 9 months to close one thing, right? So they could not serve the small and medium guys at all. It's because they only were targeting at the larger guys.
Yeah.
But currently we can serve the whole system, because even a small guy with 10 fleet or a large person with 1,000 fleet and 10,000 restrictions, both can use the same platform.
Oh, amazing.
Okay, so the API first approach in adding the parameter, configuring and tweaking the API layer rather than the solutions layer is no dev effort, zero code. So that helps a lot. So these are two things we have solved infrastructure wise. Now, purely solution wise and routing wise, all the points you mentioned are extremely relevant. It's very important that you have this for efficiency gains. You have it for bottom line. You have it not as an algorithmic layer, but more a business logic layer on top. So all three things we provide today, right? If you know that there's a game in Staples Center in LA, you want to close off the roads because you don't want any of your deliveries or trucks or to go there. You should be able to do that as a business logic perspective, not algorithmic perspective, right? So we can go and do that today on our platform. We have a route restriction tool. You can open and close roads time-based on its own. It opens up again.
Okay.
Same way, if you want to draw geofences to say, hey, these are the various geofences in a city, I want my deliveries to go in a specific way. You can do that, and you can do all this in the same set of tools. There's no need to go to multiple places to scramble to get this into one place. That's what we are building towards in terms of routing, route optimization, planning, scheduling, dispatch. And the good part is a lot of the companies who focus on deliveries or cars or trucks, we can dispatch, schedule, allocate anything that moves. People.
Okay.
I mean, let's say you're a security company. Like we have a use case right now. Like you asked me for a couple of use cases, right?
Yeah.
So we have a company that works with a very large security company provider. They maybe route like at least tens of thousands of guards all over the world every morning and every evening on beat
Yeah.
planning. We help them do that. It's because today they're doing it manually, right? It's a scheduler that they just say, hey, this person goes there, that person goes there, right? So very simple routing problem. Same way we are getting into asset servicing. Okay, let's say you are a telco, or you're an oil and gas company, or you have huge pipelines everywhere. You have assets that you have tagged and allocated.
Yeah.
Assets get spoiled very often.
Yes.
Right? So some modem conks off, some bulb conks off, some this conks off. So how do you like schedule servicemen throughout these network, right? So our routing can cater to all this. So when you say routing, it's not routing of just car or bike or bus.
Oh, amazing.
Right? So that is a fundamental difference in an API first architecture vis-a-vis solutions architecture that's built purely for, let's say, a specific vertical.
No, that's interesting, because that means that you can do resource planning. So it's not just route
Absolutely. Yeah.
optimization. It's
Yeah.
actually,
So we are optimizing resources, not routes.
yeah. I think that's the best way to explain it, because that's what businesses are looking, how to optimize their resource given less manpower available and less time available, and you want to do more. So with the resource planning, you can reach to more places. Great. Thank you for sharing that. I think that makes much more sense. Now, one of the key challenge a lot of agencies, or I would say delivery company, logistic companies are facing, is this electrification thing. Like everybody want to move toward electrification. But the problem with the electrification is, or electric vehicle, is the range. It's very limited. And the other problem is the charging time. People are not sure how much time it will take to charge and how much time I can use this vehicle. So how do you think the AI can help to make mobility and logistic more sustainable and environmental friendly, given, like you mentioned, your resource planning? In fact, I don't know if you saw the Tesla demo day recently, the Tesla annual day, and they share how Tesla is using the trip planner with efficient routing. Now you can build your route map based on the vehicle range as well as the availability of the charger. So you don't need to wait and go for that. So I just want to understand how you think the AI will help in this whole electrification thing.
Yeah. So if you look at routing historically, it's been on shortest path or quickest time, usually.
Yeah.
Okay. But since gasoline network was available abundantly in the world, they didn't care ever as to where the next gas station is, because it doesn't matter. You'll find a gas station somewhere. So the input was very different. Input was just like distance, length, time, traffic, right? But with EV, there are other factors to consider. EV has, Tesla has a lot of data on their own. So for them to build it is pretty easy. But not everyone's going to start building their own sort of, route optimization model. So in our opinion, what's going to happen is the input, same way, the API architecture we have built, it becomes an input into that, right? You change configurations like geocoded addresses of every charger in city. Like that is one. You're optimizing for charge here. You're not optimizing for time or distance. That's one. It may be the longer route, but it will give you better mileage. Okay, so it's up to you to have that call. Like, do you want to take a longer route with better mileage? Because let's say the terrain you'll have to take for the shorter path, it doesn't have a good road, or it's a slope, or it's a mountain. So these are things that you consider as you go into EV. So you need to work very closely with the manufacturer to understand what is the mechanical engineering behind that battery drain first. Okay, and how much of this is geospatial focused, how much of this is terrain focused? Because see, also in an EV or a regular gasoline car, if the driver is bad or erratic, you can't do much. But for a normal driver modeling, if this person takes X road in Seattle that has a lot of slopes versus Y road that has no slopes, it may be longer, but they could have more charge. Okay, if that is the problem statement, that's how it's going to differ. So AI will start determining some of these things. Okay, in terms of, is this the path? Obviously Tesla is using AI to exactly determine the same path, right? To see whether, hey, has my Model 3 given a more charge over last week than this week based on the same route that they've taken and different driving patterns? or a different route to reach the same destination has this route and better than that. I suggest that then, right? So it's essentially what Waze did for traffic. I think AI will do the same for EVs at some point. Say, listen, your next charger is there. It doesn't matter whether your route is that or not. You go via this charger, then you will reach quicker or you will reach easier, is what will differ.
Yeah, and I think the important point to share is that Tesla has a big, large fleet, so they can optimize their fleet themselves. But many other independent players, they don't have access to that kind of a data. So what they have to do is they have to work with other third-party player like NextBillion to optimize these routes. And the point you mentioned is it's very important, because for gasoline car, I generally take the same route going and coming back. But probably for EV vehicle, it make more sense. While going, you take a route which has slope downhill. You can cover the distance faster, and then while coming back, you take a route which doesn't have any slope, so that you can save your battery or energy. Amazing. No, that makes sense, and I truly agree with you. The role of this kind of mapping and AI will be more important for electrification. Otherwise, we will never able to achieve what we are intending to. Now, one of the key point you mentioned in one of your earlier interview, and which you mentioned, that future of location is decentralization. You said it's not same. One map doesn't fit all. So I would love to know a little more about what do you mean by future of location is decentralization, and how do you see mapping and optimization technology evolving in next few years? Like, what are the innovation do you think we will be seeing in this sector? Will we see more use of blockchain or digital twins or AI or something else? Because every day we hear something new. So how you see these technology will impact the market?
So I think, see, a lot of buzzwords. I don't think a lot of these things will even come to some commercial fruition at some point.
Oh.
Some will, like almost certainly. I just think the future is decentralized in our world, meaning this is not a Web3 crypto jargon. It's more, if you look at fundamentally how location tech was built over the last 3 decades or 2 decades, people thought data is king. I'm going to collect a lot of data, and I will distribute the data in a centralized fashion. And this is exactly what happened for the last 2 years. For the last 20 years, where whoever owned data was king. But with open source coming up in a massive way, like, whatever, when you see GitHub and things in regular coding, or let's say Linux in regular coding, or operating systems, we are very in that cusp in geospatial currently. Over the last decade, lot of work has been put into open sourcing a lot of the geospatial data. So the future, when I say decentralized, is who has the best software to keep this data fresh, to maintain it, to build solutions on top of this data. And I'm talking about the 2D world in open source. The 3D, 5D, every world will become the same way, because you can't maintain. If you look at Waymo, they've still not been able to crack any logical country level, ride hailing issue. And the only reason is because you cannot keep driving cars and burning mileage to keep your maps fresh. You have to crowdsource this information at some point. You have to have systems to take in this feedback, keep it fresh. You need low fidelity devices, not like insanely decked up cars to go and drive it. And this is the only reason why self-driving has not become commercial. Because cities change rapidly, and for them to keep up with the changes of the city, they have to go drive again. So the whole operational bandwidth to keep it is tough. This also will become decentralized, right? Eventually your phone camera or your own camera will have enough fidelity to capture almost LiDAR grade images, pump it into a system that you get rewarded for via a blockchain. Okay. Then you have a reward system on that blockchain. Then you sort of go into maintaining this data and building solutions on top. That part of it, I agree, can get commercialized, but at a very, very large scale, everything else is jargon words. So you need to have a very specific problem statement as to why you're tackling it. So there are certain things like rewards, recognition, as I said, like crowdsourcing, maintenance of data that is, pumped in. All this, I think, will become on a blockchain. All of this will become more and more decoupled / decentralized, rather than being centralized with one big tech player. That's the future, is what we think is almost certainly going to happen. And we are building our solutions to cater to that future.
Interesting. No, I agree with you. Like, a lot of these jargon, but at the same time, what you mentioned about decentralization, about how to crowdsource information, because it's hard for company to update the map on daily basis. I mean, our world is changing. a lot of
Mhm.
construction, a lot of incident, a lot of traffic management issues. So you can't just have updated data on day-to-day basis. So what you can do is crowdsource data from different people and reward them for these kind of action, like what Google reviews do. Based on different places people review, and they reward them, and they get updated data about what's happening around you, whether that street is open or closed, or whether there is a new street coming up. So thanks for sharing that. And the important point you mentioned about is that how the whole this geospatial data world is changing in last 20 years. Like, we are collecting much more data now owing to the increasing penetration, advanced satellites. So we are generating tons of spatial data. But there is also issue about this privacy and cybersecurity and data privacy with these more and more data collection. But what I want to check with you is how availability of more spatial data has changed in recent year, and how can transportation and logistics industry can use spatial data to better understand the need and behavior of customer. I was discussing in my previous conversation with one of the public transit guy, and he was very excited about whole spatial data, because he said you can have much more understanding about consumer behavior with that data rather than just having a census number. But this geospatial data can give you much more understanding about your customer, like whether they go to mall, whether they go to shop, whether they buy expensive stuff, whether they use parking lot, whether they use buses or train. So how do you see availability can help the sector?
So I think the sector in itself, right, is just going through a massive paradigm shift. Okay, currently. So see, location was always never mainstream if you look at it. It's
Yeah.
not like people thought location first. Never, almost, right? So people always thought problem first. So as of today, like a little bit of that is changing, because we're collecting a lot of probe data, if nothing, right? And only company that leveraged it very well was Waze or Google, that they had amazing traffic models they built from Android and things like that. But like today, every company is looking at what can I do with my location data actually. Okay. And there's not enough solutions / enough expertise in this domain to even make people understand. In the world of ad tech and marketing, they understand it really well, by the way, for the last decade. Right? Understanding footfall, understanding retail analytics, understanding who's going to which store to door movement. So in this world of marketing, they've understood it pretty well, ad tech and marketing. So I mean, that's why you see targeted ads come to you very well on Android or Apple. They know where you are.
Right. Yeah.
But in anywhere else, they have not cracked this problem. I think especially cities and governments are very, so their world is geospatial. I will just have some data of the city in some sort of a format and let it be. But like that way, Singapore is very advanced. Singapore has its own map called One Map. It's an older map. It's a raster, as what we call it. It's static, but yet they have managed to create a repository on a more visual layer of everything: roadworks, schools, districts, routing, everything, right? So now we are sort of trying to work with them slowly to make it a vector and make it a navigable map. Early stages still, but we have in the ideation process with them on all this sort of citizen use cases. Let's say you have your own mapping app or just a citizen app. You having the fact that you can push very basic things like, hey, this roadworks going on and ABCD things, don't go there. There is all of these barrier-free access for prams and older citizens. All these things become very easy for you as a city government or a central government or even the federal government, right? So we have been pushing so many public policy and government makers say you need to have your own government sector map that citizens should use, because you have the most advanced survey grade data that maybe nobody has.
True.
So it is something that I think there is some sort of opening up happening, but even today they're more comfortable to work in partnership and just share the data with someone rather than building something on that, right? So I think there will change. There will be like a lot of use cases that if you want to build a smart city, the fundamental thesis is having a map. Okay,
that's true.
Every smart city starts with a basic map. On stuff you build something smart, like be it 3D, 5D, whatever. You want a whole 3D rendering of your city, you first need a good 2D map of it that you know how to use.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of educational barrier here, because people are seeing these drone images and thinking, wow, that is sexy, but I don't know what to do with it. But so that's exactly what a smart city is, right? Only because you fly a drone and render a 3D, that's not a smart city, right? You have to render this 3D on top of a 2D, understand location context, which addresses is what, I'll give an amazing use case. In China and all, what they do, they know per building in 3D who all have paid taxes that year. Right? Because they have floor
that's
level
amazing.
information. So you can actually say for this county, for these buildings, I have all the 3D done.
Okay.
And in this 3D, I understand everything in that context, in that county. Okay, so I understand who's paid water bills, who's paid electricity bills, who's paid taxes. That's a smart city government use case where you can monitor everything on this one small, UI, right? So we need a lot more, how do I say, awareness, like a lot more openness for these governments to come and say, listen, I'm keen on some solution like this.
Yeah. No, I think what you mentioned it's superb. That case of like, it's not just map, but you actually build that business layer. And I fully agree with you. A lot of smart city, they just think that bringing tech will solve everything, but it's actually how you integrate different things. Like in India, you and me know what are the different challenges. Like you don't even have a basic map about the utilities, where the utility lies. And every time they dig up something and they discover, oh, we break something which we never
Right.
thought exists there. So first thing for smart city, creating those kind of a layer. And what you mentioned about, how you can have a better control over citizens, like household data, you can understand their behavior, you can map their probably income or spending pattern with that layer, and you can understand how people will use. One important point you mentioned is that how people can learn more about accessibility, like people who are with small kid, young kid, using pram, or old people. There are two key emerging area I have seen all over the world, especially in North America. There's a lot of discussion about this accessibility, and
Correct.
cities want to build map which are not just giving you the best route, but which give you the accessible routing option. Like city of
Yeah.
Vancouver is implementing this mapping solution for wheelchair user, people with walking disability. So in 2026 Commonwealth game, they want you to search route based on where you can take your wheelchair, or where you
Yeah.
can old people can go. And
Yeah.
the other big thing is the wayfinding. People
Correct.
with I would say visible disability, or they cannot understand the wayfinding, or sometimes buildings are so big, sometimes you lost in the mall because it's so big. So the wayfinding is becoming too key area. What do you think about these emerging area? Is Next Billion is also planning to build something in that area?
So same thing. So we want to be a generic tooling / a location company rather than trying to build very specific solutions for a problem, right?
Yeah.
So we can already build this wayfinding, barrier-free access, routing on wheelchairs, accessibility, prams in the existing platform. It's just a matter of having the need, understanding where. So contextually, we already have all the software and the information to do it. So for us, we only will cater to folks who have a real scalable need in general. So is it doable? Absolutely doable. Already done and proven in a country like Singapore, how to do it. We have the understanding. It's because this is not a mapping problem. This is a location problem with data layering on top, right? You need every curb, you need every accessible point, you need every blocker, you need every slope in the city. Only then can you route them like easily. You also have to make sure barrier-free, meaning, so when you say barrier-free access, it's like some roads should not be extremely sloped or extremely thing. So you need to route them in the most efficient, plain fashion, if possible. Extremely doable. NextBillion is already in it. So we are in all things location currently. We are expanding our own scope. Initially, we were a little narrow in what we do. But as we're talking to customers, we're seeing there's a need in every vertical that we talk to. Like oil and gas, microfinance, employment. I think location plays an extremely important part. We had a company who wanted the closest job. So purely distance-based job, right? You open your mobile app just to calculate distance, how far this job is from you. And so things like this, right? So it's like it is giving more context to the job applicant, saying, hey, if my job is 300 kilometers away, I don't even apply for it, maybe, as an example, right? So if the location of this job. So things like this we are seeing on our own open up. Like in microfinancing, you have to do loan collections. So we have folks who collect loans every day almost. And you have to go to a certain number of houses to do your evening beat. It's a route optimization problem. It's not a finance problem, right? So we are ourselves proactively getting customers who are asking us for all these things. So this year is purely focused for us, Jaspal, to make sure that we get our product right. We get some sales motion going. There are many problems to solve, as I spoke about. But what are the most revenue generating problems today for the company? Because we're venture funded and we need to justify our revenues, and we can't be in the R&D phase for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And then slowly, build up towards this vision of what I was saying, that we'll be the only location platform you need. You don't need to go anywhere. Just come here, we'll give you everything.
Amazing. No, I agree with you. It's like always good to understand the problem, and user should come to you and say, this is my use case, can we implement that? Now, you mentioned about a lot of buzzword in the market, and one of the key buzzword today is this chat GPT, or I would say generative AI tool, and VCs and a lot of founders and companies are building up tool for that. I see some use case for generative AI for kind of finding routing for accessibility, wayfinding.
Mhm.
Are you planning to integrate something with Next Billion, Chat GPT kind of a feature, or generative AI?
So I think for us, generative AI is not at all how to say parallel, vertical, or it would not help in any way for spatial data.
Okay.
But like for example, crowdsourcing is something at some point we'll integrate, because we have a navigation SDK, and using the navigation SDK, when our enterprise customers start using it, their end users will start giving feedback,
Hmm.
and we want to make sure that we are leveraging that feedback in the best way possible to improve the maps. So that sort of integrations is what we'll do, but I don't think anything generative currently in our world works.
Hmm. So it's not for Next Billion. Not, you don't want to see any use case right now.
As of today, no.
No, great. And I agree. I think it's a buzzword. With a lot of discussion we are seeing today probably will die down, but certainly some use case will emerge, but not all of them. Now,
Yeah.
I want to discuss more about your entrepreneurial side, because, like you mentioned, you started company during the pandemic. In fact, I watched one of your video on LinkedIn when you met your co-founder first time in person after 2 years of starting company,
Yeah.
because you couldn't travel and he couldn't
Correct.
travel, so you
Correct.
both were in different countries, so you met after 2 years. And you mentioned some very important point in the beginning, that for any successful business, two things are very important: the problem and the team. Now, I
Correct.
want to understand, like, founding team is very important. So how did you build your team? How did you find your co-founder? And what is your feedback for other entrepreneur who's looking to start business, that how they can build a killer team?
So very difficult question. I'll be frank. Many people have asked me this, that how do you guys work the way you do? I'll tell you the two things that I have at least seen. Actually, you should never start with your friends.
Okay.
That's first things first. I am friends with both Gaurav and Shaolin. They will say the same, but we were not friends first.
Hmm.
We professionally worked together first in terms of 3.5 years of hard work, where we would give very candid feedback to each other if we suck at something. That's the first things first, right? So we built trust over the years in first professional setting. So that's extremely important, that you have worked with a person in the past, and worked in a capacity where you can tell them, hey, this is not working out.
Hmm.
If you don't have that sort of a candidness, very tough for companies to succeed. And the biggest reason startups fail, in fact, is co-founder issues as they grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that part of it, we were very clear from first day that, listen, hey, if any one of us is slacking, we tell very candidly, listen, boss, is not working out. Okay, that's one. So for you to have a team, and if you want to build a killer company, you need that first founding to be very strong, that foundation.
Yeah.
Very strong. It's a 10-year journey almost. Okay, so you need to really like the people you're working with. And when I say, it's like a marriage almost, right? You need to like them day in, day out, not a
Yeah.
transactional this thing. So second most important thing is having personalities that match. Uh, and third, of course, each one of you should have very clear vetoes on your roles and skill sets. We still do not have a CEO. If you go to our LinkedIn's, we just have co-founder titles.
Okay.
We don't intend to ever have, I mean, Shaul is the CTO, it's very clear. But when me and Gaurav, we are very like, hey, listen, we're just co-founders, right? But we have clear vetoes. Gaurav is all things product because he's the
Okay.
best. And I am all things investor relations, sales, marketing, BD, legal, everything else, right? So those pseudo, we do CPO, CTO, COO sort of roles. We've never put titles.
Okay.
And that's very cultural for us also. We've never liked titles in our life. It unnecessarily brings up competition, who's bigger, all these things, right? So,
Yeah.
so we've kept these things pretty open. So you need to be very, very, very open with each other in terms of actually building a good team. And we have also, before starting up, we had also written a huge philosophical document, right? Like, so listen, why are we doing this? What's your exit plan? Why is it that you're doing this at this stage of your life? So being older founders, maybe we were a little bit more structured and mature in what we do, right? So these are things that are very crucial, important. I've seen all sorts of co-founder troubles, at least through my friend circle and my network. I am very blessed to have two very good co-founders. I still think that a lot of my life becomes very easy because we blindly trust each other in everything, because we understand capabilities, we understand our own shortcomings, and we're very mature about all this. So I think these are three key things that you need to look for in a partner. I also think you can't go looking for a co-founder. I would never do it. I would only do it with somebody who I gel with at work.
No, I think the point you mentioned, in fact, I wrote an article about this, finding a co-founder, and the point you mentioned about is that have that candid relationship and openly telling each other what is wrong, what is good, and having trust. And in fact, I mentioned you as a CEO, but now I realize, okay, that's not the case. You are co-founder and Gaurav is also co-founder.
Right.
You both share responsibility. And so now one of the key challenges, like you mentioned, you started your company in Singapore, but you have now team in different parts of the world. Right now, you are in US itself to make for sale pitch and meet different partner investors and all. What are some of the biggest challenge you face as a co-founder? I would not say CEO of a company, but co-founder of a fast-growing startup. And how have you navigated them? It's like you started during pandemic, you can't able to travel, meet the people. You hired employee because you got funding early, so you need to expand, you need to build the product. How did you manage this fast-growing startup, and what are the challenges you're facing, which you still are struggling to solve?
So I think all of us were techies, meaning we have engineering degrees. I am a very bad engineer, but at least my other two founders are absolute techies as well. So I think we knew product and stuff very well. We knew what to build, exactly how to solve the problem. But what we didn't understand was marketing, sales, GTM, is this fields. Even today, we don't know it. We've learned a lot, but it's not like we have cracked repeatable sales motion in NextBillion. It's still scrappy. It's still here and there. In all fairness, we are just 2.5 years old. So I think early still for SaaS, but we need to crack this motion open, understand enterprise needs, understand how to close enterprise deals. This is verticals that we have not really, I still think, aced. This year, I am personally, that's why in the US now also, to spend time and understand what to do, right? Learn. And only then can we, I think, open up this massive TAM that we think is there for this vertical. So I think where you also, I'm understanding now, is understanding business context and selling tech is way more important than just building technology.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy to build technology. It's very tough to sell it. So this is something that I have learned over the last 2.5 years, and there's no shame in accepting that it's obviously not been great in terms of learning on how to sell that reputably. So we are now learning, and I also am very confident in our team that once we put our heads together, we'll solve it. Right? So the one thing that I hold very highly of us is like we may not be this trailblazing startup, etc., but our team is just absolutely fantastic. We've handpicked our people since all of us worked at least 10-12 years in our careers. We have chosen some of the best that we have worked with, right? In setting up this 75 sort of core member team that we've set up. So I think that is something again that's very important. Your early stages, you having a great team and you understanding that it's a hustle world. It's not going to be a structured, nice, fun job is very, very crucial. Even for your employees, you need to be very frank and say, listen, things change rapidly. Things change weekly. I'm not saying we'll pivot our product and suddenly from maps become location and from location become some generative. So we will be following through on this vision. But the way we reach that goal is going to be very, very scrappy.
And that's how the way the startup journey is. You have to figure out on the way. You can't just wait.
And not everyone's cut out for it, huh? Like trust me when I say it, very few people are cut out for this level of, hey, things change like every week. So many get frustrated and leave. Many just say, listen, I can't do this. It's really, it's not my cup of tea. But if you enjoy it, it is the most fun thing you can do.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, it's I should recommend you to read this book, The Lego Story. It's a story about how Lego company was built. And
Okay.
like you mentioned, the original founder, he was a product guy. He has zero clue about sale. He can't collect money. He can't talk to people. But his son, one of his son, third son, he was like marketing guy. He has no idea about product, but he was marketing guy. So that's how the company form is. Like once they build the product, they had a good product, and then he came into the picture and he sell it. And I feel like you mentioned, both things are important for business. You need to have a good product and you need to have a good sale team so that you can sell it out what you have built. But I think you will figure out. You just need to hustle.
Correct.
Now, Next Billion closed a big Series B round of 21 million last year, which is great. So big congratulations to you, because during that time everything was slowing down and you managed to pull it off. What are your plan for next 2-3 years? How do you see Next Billion growing in next 2-3 years, and how
Okay.
you're planning to use this funding?
I think for us, the biggest area is sales, as I said. I mean, I'm going to keep repeating it. We're obsessed with it now. Uh, it's to crack, not sales meaning crack customers. It is to crack the sales process.
Yeah.
If nothing for our own learning. Right? It's not about going and cracking one customer somewhere. How do I crack one and then crack 100 on top?
Yeah.
Right. So understanding the process, understanding activations, understanding the post customer journey, understanding customer success, understanding the post building of product journey is where we're focusing and investing our time and whatever the capital we raised. Right. We as a company have never hired too many. So
Mm.
we only hire as needed. So that way, I don't think we're going to massively go and invest in hiring and scaling teams globally. We're just going to keep it nimble, slow, and very fast moving. Sorry, slow meaning small. Sorry.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do. I think also where we're going to focus a lot of our energy this year is going to be in uh, positioning and branding the company also. Because as of today, it was very like, hey, you're another mapping platform. So we're trying to say, listen, that's just the input into the mapping
Yeah.
platform. So we'll spend a lot of our time in educating the market, as I was talking about, making them understand why location is important. This is where we're going to spend time on.
And that's why we are recording this also. We can share with
Yes.
more people.
Yes.
No, I think it's important. It's, to be honest, in our discussion, even I learned a lot of new things. And I understand it's not about mapping solution. It's about how to solve the business problem, business case. Like you mentioned about security agency, you mentioned about maintenance staff, you mentioned about last mile logistic, hyper local delivery, and electric vehicle, how the planning can be done much better, and why this kind of solution is required, because not everybody has access to millions of vehicles. Like not everybody have access to Tesla fleet, which can plan their own fleet and which can do stuff. So it's very important. So thanks for sharing that. Now this is my last question.
Mhm.
And it's basically, I want to understand, because you are part of a lot of this, like you're part of Forbes Tech Council, you're part of a lot of other forum where you discuss about how the world is changing.
Yeah.
And what are the new technology coming up. So how do you see the use of AI technologies going to transform mobility or logistic world in next 5 to 10 years?
Hmm?
And what is the role do you see Next Billion will be playing in that transformation?
I think AI has already been transforming logistics and mobility for a long time now, actually under the hood.
Yeah.
Right? Like you never see it, but if you see basic information like incidents, traffic, uh, rerouting, anything that you see today, it all happens using AI and all happens using data that's being collected from you even without your knowledge. Right?
Yeah.
So I think eventually with this whole access to data being more and more limited as we progress, I think big tech's influence on this is going to become a little tougher. Right.
Mm.
So I think what's going to happen is either companies that are independent like Next Billion that are small, or other companies in this vertical, they will have access to very niche data with consent of enterprises and customer or
Mm.
governments. Then it will be a dedicated problem solving AI focus and generic AI focus.
Mm.
It's going to be very specifically as how do I reduce carbon footprint of my trucking network,
Mm.
right, using AI. That's going to be the problem we'll be solving, rather than how do I optimize truck routing in US. Right.
Yeah.
So AI is going to be used for more niche use cases than a very generic build. That's where I think I am seeing this, at least like my conversations with other folks, is that's what's going to happen.
Mm.
And two other things that's going to happen is access to data is going to get very limited for everyone to distribute. So the company that works with other companies and shares this data in a way that's useful for a specific problem, That's going to be this like the a second switch that's going to happen, because even consumers will start consenting no to sharing their location data, as an example. Okay. Uh, Already Apple has put this in their own operating system.
Yeah.
Right. So all of this is going to become more restricted than open. It's not like you can grayball anyone like, it used to happen 8-9 years back. So I think with all of these paradigm shifts, it is going to be very important for companies like ours and even bigger companies to start understanding and modeling their own business models in this way, that, hey, data will be free, abundantly available, but for the right people. So we also think to do any AI, the most important thing is obviously training data. And access to training data all these years was only with FANG companies.
Yeah.
But now everyone has data. So how do you model this data for specific use cases? How do you make it usable is what is going to change in the next 5-7 years, rather than I have the best data, I'm the best. So these are some huge shifts that are going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years. I think 10 is too long. In 10, many things will change.
Yeah.
But next 3 to 5, I think these are first, building blocks that are going to change.
Well, that's very interesting because, I mean, a lot of people think there'll be a lot of data in future. I mean, you are saying there'll be a lot of data in the future, but it will be very specific. So it will be right for right user. It not be anybody can have access to any kind of data, because you're right. People are now restricting data use. Apple has put this. In fact, Google is planning now. Google Ad is planning that you cannot get the cookies data of your website browsing. So they will restrict that. So a lot of these restrictions will be in place, and it'll be interesting. No, thanks for sharing that. Really, really interesting, Ajay, to learn from your perspective. Now, we discussed about technology, AI, mapping, a lot of other things. Now it's time to learn more about you. And to do that, we have this rapid fire question round. We generally ask this 5 questions to learn you as a person. So whenever you're ready, I'll start.
Yeah, ready.
Okay. So if you were not in a technology and this geospatial technology industry or technology industry, what other profession you would have selected?
I think I'd be a chef.
Chef? Oh,
yeah.
So you love cooking?
I love food, love cooking. Even today, I think my dream is to have a small restaurant. So I think I will, if I do anything with Next Billion, I will invest some money into having a nice restaurant. My other passion is sports. So I'll be very close to sports. I think that's the 2 things I would do as soon as all this tech AI stuff is done.
That's amazing. Both are good, sports and healthy food. So it can combine together, probably together.
It may not be healthy, but food in general is
food. Now, you have traveled around the world and seen so many cities. You have actually live in different cities. Which is your favorite city in the world?
I think New York City should be number 1 in terms of just pure ranking, very closely followed by Tokyo, if it's mega cities. If it's the non-mega cities, I think Bora Bora in Tahiti is probably one of the most beautiful places I've seen in my life. So these are,
Oh, amazing. Amazing. Now, what's your favorite book or podcast you want to recommend to others?
Actually, it's the most embarrassing thing. I don't read at all. I read news. I read very niche stuff, and I don't listen to podcasts at all. I know I'm doing one. Not because I don't want to. There has been not much time to do it. But I think I take my inspiration from sports more than books or podcasts. Most of my inspo, I've said this so many years, has been with very elite athletes who have stayed at the top of their game for a decade or so, right? Because sports is all mind. At that level, it's all just heart and mind, 2 things. And these 2 things are very crucial even for entrepreneurship. So heart and mind is extremely, extremely important. So I have mostly taken inspo from that. Let's say Michael Jordan, like Ronaldo, like these are guys who've stayed at that peak for a long time. So they have specific techniques on how they do it, and you can try to emasculate a little bit of that and you'll still succeed very well, because they are at extreme top of their game. So that's usually how I take my inspo, at least.
Oh, which is great, because a couple of days back I was reading one of the athletes from US. He mentioned that how they wake up every day 6 o'clock in the morning and work out for 7-8 hours.
Correct.
And you can only do when you have a bigger purpose in mind. Otherwise you can't do it.
It's all like same and extreme perseverance, I think. So it's because everyone loses. It's a part of it, right? But how you come back is very important, and I feel that, at least for me, that keeps me going. Saying that, hey, folks have achieved a lot more in life with a lot less resources. So no reason why we should flake.
No, I can see that, because that's what you mentioned in the beginning is you're not looking this for making it 10 billion or $20 billion
No,
company.
not at
You're
all.
here to have fun. And that's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
spirit of a game.
Yeah, if it happens, good. Otherwise, no stress. Absolutely fine.
Which is good. Now, what one thing do you wish you should have learned early in life?
I mean, in life, I think I should have learned very early that education is not super important.
Hmm.
Maybe in life, I mean, but we came from middle class Indian backgrounds in the 90s, which that was the only thing that sort of was salvation, for many. So I understand where we came from. In the entrepreneurship journey, I think what we wished we learned earlier was focus,
Hmm.
uh, which we lacked, I think, in terms of narrowing focus, not focus, but trying to do too much.
Hmm.
Because we had money or we had raised capital, let's experiment, instead of trying to double down on stuff that is working.
Yeah.
So the two themes for this year in NextBillion actually is quality and focus.
Hmm.
And last year the three themes were, like, let's go sign n number of customers, let's go increase, platform usage, revenue. We had this very generic things.
Yeah.
This is super targeted. We just want to make sure we focus on things that are working, and quality of customers is important than quantity of customers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's superb. At least you are now doing that, focusing on what is important. And I think what you mentioned is very important, because that was biggest lesson of my entrepreneurial journey. When I started company, I was focusing on too many things, but ultimately I learned you have to double down on what is working and
Right.
rest. Now, this is my last question, and it can be your personal life, professional life, but if you can change one thing in life, what would it be?
If I could change one thing in life, I always have lived with the thing that life's good. There's no issues in life in general. However, tough or easy it has been. I think the only thing I wish was personal life, maybe, staying closer and spending more time with parents,
Hmm.
which has been there, but it's still not been there. It's this nagging personal feeling that, hey, I should spend obviously more time
More
with
time.
family. But obviously owing to work and these things have been crazy over the last few years, it's not been happening. But that's the only thing I would change if possible, that maybe I would stay even more closer to my family.
Oh, that's great. No, I wish you that. Wish you good luck with that, because that's the thing everybody miss, family,
Yeah,
and that's the biggest support system you have. No, thank you so much, Ajay. I mean, thank you for sharing all your great insight. I really love our conversation, and wish you good luck in your journey. I mean, I can see you are on a right path. It's just you need to have more wins.
that's it. Yes, absolutely. I agree. And I hope we do.
You will
Thank you
definitely.
so
Thank
much,
you so
Jasper.
much. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Great chat. Thank you. See you. Bye.
And thank you for listening to this podcast. We'll be inviting some other inspiring guests in coming week. You can subscribe to this podcast online to get the notification for the next episode. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us to spread our message. If you have any feedback or suggestion for this podcast, please do write to us at info@mobility-innovator.com. I look forward to see you next time. Thank you.